Ooh, our kids are going to hear this one day and then they're going to need therapy.
It's not like I'm or you are killing the bad idea. We already agreed not to do this. We were at that birthday party the other day and we were sort of talking like, because we don't make it into Austin that often. We were like, hey, we should go cross town to get a dinner reservation at that place that we hadn't been able to get one on like a couple weekends before. And like the kids were doing okay, but not amazing. And then you were like, the whole point of doing less this year, we were talking about doing less this year, means not trying to turn one activity, going to a birthday party, into two activities, which is the birthday party and then dinner. Like you're basically like, we have to stop trying to squeeze one more thing in because that's the straw that breaks the camel's back in our family, it seems.
Yes. We are trying to set our kids up for success and set ourselves up for success. And then I think when we like made the realization that we tried to squeeze a lot of stuff in,
yes,
I realized that we've been doing that to ourselves with everything.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, we say things a lot like, since we're going to be there, we should, or what about when, or like, you know what we could also do? Or
like, I think we had a really clear way to explain this. I think the way that I think about it, and I can explain it to you, is that we were talking about these road trips we used to go on. And now like how much time you can spend in the car when you have kids is much different than the amount of time you could spend in the car before you had kids.
Yeah, right? You could do 8 or 9 or 10 hours in a day, and with kids you have got like 6 or whatever.
But then we were talking about, I did a road trip and I drove all the way from Miami to Mobile, Alabama by myself in the car.
Yeah.
And in one day. And you were like, how did you do that? That's like not whatever. And I'm just thinking about like, there's this, when you don't plan how much time you're going to be in the car, you just think, should we stop here or can we make it 1 more hour?
Or there's this cool place off the highway a bit. Let's do that. Or like, do we want to stop and see this?
Yeah,
right. It's like,
right.
It's adding in the extra activities.
Right. Like, let's just cram one more thing in.
Yeah.
And we were driving home from this birthday party and you're like, let's go, we can go to dinner. We can make it to this place and go to dinner. And I'm like, the kids just had a good time at this birthday party. It went well. There were no meltdowns. There were no disasters.
Go out on top.
Let's go out on top. We can also make it home for dinner. We have food at home. We can cook dinner. We can have a perfectly set bedtime. Let's just do the one thing.
Well, so I think of 2 other examples where we did this well, and I talked about them on one of the solo episodes. But when we were in New York for the launch of Daily Dad, we had to be there at like 4 because I had to film something with Dawson, and then I had to get there for my talk. I had to go into my talk at 5, and you said, did you know there's a Harry Potter store?
Kids are going to hear this one day and then they're going to need therapy.
Well, we'll have gone by then. But you're like, did you know there's a Harry Potter store at like 5 blocks from the Barnes & Noble in Union Square? And we're trying to get them into reading.
We've been reading Harry Potter.
They love Harry Potter. Right. They loved getting those build your own lightsabers when we were at Disneyland. And you could build your own wand.
Or get a wand.
The Harry Potter store. And so we were like, okay, so that means we have to leave it this time. We were like, how do we add that on?
And we had like enough time to prep them for the experience and go.
Could have happened.
Only go for 30 minutes.
It may have gone well, but we were pretty far into the planning, and you like pulled the ripcord, and you're like, why? We're going to get them all excited to go do this thing, and then they're going to want to do more of it than we actually have time for because we only have maybe like 30 or 45 minutes. And what if there's a line, or what if it takes longer to get there than we thought? And then we're going to have to convince them to leave. And then they're going to have a meltdown, or they might have a meltdown. Then they're going to be mad. They're going to be distracted. They're not going to do well at the time. It's like, let's not add one more thing to this outing.
Well, and like I think our kids do super well if we like prep them.
Yes.
So, but I think my thinking there is that like we already are asking them to do super well with the prep of them needing to have a late bedtime to attend this event for you in a place they've never been. That can be very stressful. We're going to like Union Square, and we're going to this enormous Barnes & Noble where there's like a lot of stimuli and there's like a lot of toys that they can't have because there's like, it's basically a toy store. And then to add this additional thing that we weren't expecting, it's just like, we could just do it a different time.
not only could we do it at a different time, but the thing we did instead,
Yeah.
which is like they just went to that park in Union Square, or the playground, while I did what I had to do.
Right.
Like they weren't comparing Harry Potter store and playground, even though one was free and one would have cost a lot of money. As far as they understood it,
Right.
that was a special, awesome thing.
Well, there was also another layer there, which was like, what were we compensating for that we felt like we needed to provide this experience?
Yeah, they didn't
for
know
our
it
kids?
existed
Yes.
at all. It's not like they'd even asked for it. We were like, what we were trying to do, what we had done is heard about something cool and wanted to expose them to it or provide it for them because we like it when they are
Right.
happy and having fun. But like that, it's not that that's selfish, but they're not asking for it. It's coming from some place of like, guilt's not even the right word, but you're just like you're like compensating for something maybe,
Right.
or
we're
what,
asking a lot of our kids in this
Yeah.
experience. So like, I don't know.
but you're not
reward
actually
them in some
doing
aspect.
anything
No.
for them by getting them to do it.
No.
But then the other example is we're planning this trip to Jackson Hole because I have that talk in Jackson Hole, and you have like a bunch of fond memories of going there as a kid, and so we're going as a family.
We were trying to cram all
and
of
then
this
we were
stuff
like,
in.
okay, so if we're here for 2 days, then we drive to Yellowstone, and you're just like, we're going to Jackson Hole because we have a free trip to Jackson Hole.
Let's just
we
go to
could-
Jackson Hole.
Let's just go to Jackson Hole. We can also do a trip to Yellowstone and pay for the trip. Like I think when for us, because of the position we're in and the kinds of things we're talking about, right? It's not like we are in the position that our parents often were, which is needing to economize,
Right.
like needing to go, we're never going to be in this part of the country again. So what are the things we have to cross off while we're there? Or like, how do we make this opportunity or experience, how do we stretch it as far
But
as
even
possible?
if we aren't, like, even if we never have the opportunity to go there, but
we could just have one awesome
we
thing
could
there.
just have one awesome thing there, because what happened when our parents were trying to economize and do that? What was that experience
We
for
were
us?
super stressed.
Do you have fond memories of some of those trips?
No, because it was like activity to activity.
Yeah,
You
it
weren't
was
like,
super stressful. I mean,
don't-
I liked those road trips that I went on with my parents because, and the things that I remember about those road trips were like the small, like going to Jackson Hole and having these like weird experiences, being like snowed in ski lodges when like off season. I don't know. I have like the things that were slow and like weird. I don't have fond memories of like us trying to cram a ton of shit in.
But I just remember it's like, let's say my dad was going on a business trip, right?
Right.
And so it's like the fact that there was a hotel paid for made it possible
yeah.
for him to pay for us to come, right?
Right.
But that's not the position that we're dealing with on some of these things, right?
Right,
It's
right,
like,
right.
it's not like we lived in the middle of nowhere and we drove 6 hours to this birthday party. And now that we're here, we really should go to a restaurant. It's like, we're here all the time. We could drive
it's
30
30
minutes.
minutes,
We
I
could
know.
drive 30 minutes to dinner and that be the only thing that we're doing. So
Right.
there's this kind of tendency to create false economies or false like efficiencies that are actually really expensive in the sense that it's leading to the meltdown. You're leaving it didn't go well. So then you're on the way home, you're like, we shouldn't do that ever again.
Yeah.
And I think but it's weird how much discipline that requires to
Yeah.
be like, no,
To
we're
say
not,
no.
to not do that extra
You
thing.
sensing a theme
Yeah.
and saying no.
Of course, it's hard. It's really hard.
Especially because we tend to feed off of each other's energy with those things.
We do.
But we're getting better at
Well,
doing.
it's like if one person suggests it, then the other person doesn't want to be like, that's a bad idea.
But no.
And then you're like, then all of a sudden you're like, wait, why did we, like, I think it was really good because I think I probably suggested the dinner. I didn't suggest the Harry Potter store, but it like you in a way that didn't make me feel defensive or didn't challenge the fact that we'd already spent some time and energy like planning it. You did a good job pulling the ripcord on both of those in a way that like, do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like it, because sometimes it's like someone has an idea, so then they're wedded to that idea, and then they like, but actually everyone was pretty lightly attached to it, so we managed to get out of it.
Well, I think this is like kind of derailing from the original conversation a little bit, but like I think that we've had a lot of conversations around this recently, and I think that us like having a real conversation at the beginning of the year that our goal this year was to do less like
helps you make the
helps us
decision.
make these decisions, and understanding that our kids need us to like have less on our plates
Yeah.
and have more time,
Sure.
like having less chaos does that. But I think it requires a lot of trust in each other. Like, this isn't coming from a place of judgment. This isn't coming up from a place of like resentment. This isn't coming from a place of like blame or thinking that like you're causing issues. This is like a or doubt. It's coming from like, I don't know if this is the best decision for our family. What do you think? And you being like, you know what? I'm going to trust the call that you, or the feeling that you have. And because I had a little bit of doubt too. And then us being on the same page.
It's calling back to the intention that we set together at the beginning of the year. Like a good example where I was the one calling it, which is Clark wanted to go to Fredericksburg to go to that Naval Museum there,
right?
Which is
great.
The middle of Texas for some reason. But
an incredible museum.
You were like, let's get a hotel in Fredericksburg. There's a cool place we could stay, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? It's 2 hours there and 2 hours back. Let's just have one somewhat long-ish day.
Yeah.
Instead of like, then we're gonna have to leave the night before and then
which normally we totally fine, but with the circumstances of the way things had been, we hadn't had like any routine at home for a while.
It was totally fine. It was not really that it
No.
wasn't that much more of an inconvenience than when we drove into town to go to the birthday party. Like it was much actually more reasonable to just go and go back and to not add extra stuff and to just be like, hey, per the boundary or rule that we set,
per our agreement.
But then it's not like I'm or you are killing the bad idea.
Mm-mm.
We already agreed not to do this. Like if we were like, hey, the rules for this business are we don't do X, Y, or Z, right? And then if X, Y, or Z comes up, you just be like, didn't we say we weren't going to do that? And you're like, oh yeah, totally right. Well, let's see how long we're exactly halfway through the year. I think we just are getting to the point into
where
a
we're
rhythm
of
doing it, and then hopefully we can.
But it's interesting because I think that by doing less, which is like how we set this intention for like we set that intention at the beginning of the year to do less. We've like, and that's what I had in mind when I talked to you about it. Is that like the intention was to create space. I mean, isn't that how like what you do with with creativity, right? You have to create space for things to like blossom. I think that's starting to happen. We're starting to see it take effect. So we're getting more confident in like, no, we can have dinner at home because it'll help us, like whatever, do less.